Hey guys, welcome back to Libby's Lounge, where we are recording the unofficial audiobook for the Assassin's Alliance. We are in chapter 28. Let's just dive right in. 28. Maureen. Maureen swirled the latte in the wide-mouthed mug in front of her, fighting the urge to chug the drink. They'd gotten in late last night, with confirmation on the intel that Zach Hedderfield would be making a meet in the cafe this morning, which left no time for sleep. She brushed the switch on her earpiece. Any news? She asked. Not yet, Seamus said in her ear. No news is good news. No news is not good news, Maureen countered. That's Eileen keeping us in the dark. Target in the building, he said, switching roles. Maureen glanced at the door, her lips lifting as Zach walked into the beachside cafe. He's alone. Not for long. Going dark, Maureen said, pulling the comm out and sticking it in her pocket. She picked up the full mug, heading straight for the counter, letting him arrive first. She took stock of his outfit. Casual, jeans and a red polo shirt. He'd cut his hair, too, the longer blonde locks now cut close to his head. What can I get you, sir? The barista asked. Black coffee. Maureen stepped up beside him. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but is there any way you can add caramel to this or something? Maureen said. It's just, I need it sweeter. The barista gave her an incredulous look, and Maureen continued. Please, I have a wicked hangover and... Maureen? Zach said. Maureen widened her eyes and turned to look at him. She dropped her mouth open. Zach, what are you doing in Greece? His eyes dilated, the excitement at seeing her slipping. Business. Here, let me get you your drink. He turned to the barista, paying for his and another drink for her. They took a table in the corner, Maureen fighting the urge to take the seat with her back to the wall. The Maureen he knew wouldn't think twice about it. She wrapped her fingers around the hot mug and smiled up at him. So what are you doing here? He asked, eyes looking past her as he surveyed the room. Vacation with friends, she said. I didn't know Hale operated out of the country. She propped her chin on her hand. Or are you working somewhere else now? He didn't answer. Are you dating Mike again? He asked, taking a sip of his coffee, eyes still scanning. Maureen screwed up her face in disgust. Oh, no. And then gave him a horrified look. Oh, please don't tell him I said that, she whispered. I didn't mean it like that. Zach laughed. It's fine. I just thought if you were here, Mike might be. Not unless you're dating him, she said with a sly smile. I don't think I'm his type, he said. Not Hale enough? She asked. What? Never mind, she said, swallowing her laughter. What a small world to find you here. How long are you staying? Undetermined at the moment. He looked over his shoulder, giving a slight nod. She ran a hand over the back of her neck, signaling Seamus their secondary target may have walked in. Well, if you want to unwind, Maureen said, and took a sip of her drink. We have a villa around the corner. It could be like old times. But he didn't seem to hear her, his gaze shifting up as someone approached their table, stopping at her elbow. Maureen looked up too, her plastered smile faltering as Rosemary smiled back down, eyes as shocked as Maureen's. Hi, Maureen said, sticking her hand out before Rosemary could say a word. You must be Zach's friend. I'm Maureen. Rose, Rosemary said, taking her hand. I'm not interrupting, am I? She moved her gaze to Zach. Oh, not at all. Maureen's an old friend from Hale Security. Maureen kept her smile in place when Rosemary snapped her eyes back to her, ignoring the warning in the back of her mind they were fucked. It was nice to meet you, Maureen said, and pushed her chair back. I should be going. Rosemary dropped a heavy hand on her shoulder, pinning her to the seat, and a jolt of fear raced through her. Everything she'd built in the last 7 years was about to blow up in her face. In Seamus's face. Eileen was going to kill her. Why don't you join us? Rosemary said. A friend of Zach is a friend of mine. Oh, she's not like part of Hale, Zach said, waving his hand. She was dating one of the higher-ups. Really? Rosemary drew the word out, tilting her head. Recently? Maureen swallowed hard as Zach answered. Until about 6 months ago, right? She gave a tight smile and nodded. Something like that. She should definitely join us. Might have some unknown insight. You know. Her eyes drilled into Maureen, and she felt her cheeks flush. All that pillow talk. Zach frowned, but before she could speak, Rosemary continued. It's not a suggestion. Take the cups back to the counter. We'll meet you outside. Zach sent her an apologetic look, but followed the orders. Rosemary released her shoulder, and Maureen rose to her feet. This isn't D.C., Maureen said in a low voice. Nor is it Bali, Rosemary ground out. What are you doing here? I can ask you the same question, Maureen countered. Hale thought Zach was selling information to Onyx, but it was selling to the legacy. Francis was going to have a coronary. Rosemary curled her lips. You've stepped into my operation. I've been running this for 2 years. Follow my lead, and maybe I'll convince my father not to sin trip you again. A violent chill rocked Maureen, and she was unable to keep the pain from crossing her face at the memory. Because you did such a great job of it the first time? Maureen spat back. Rosemary's lips curled. Let's go. She spun on her heel and headed outside. Maureen followed, tapping a hand on her leg, letting Seamus know not to short-circuit just yet. She'd be fine. Rosemary she could handle. But if Rosemary was the contact, Elijah was also doing something off the books. There was no way in hell she was going home without a full report. An SUV idled at the corner. The driver hopped out and held the door open for them to file into a modified car, the rear seats facing each other. She and Zach sat with their backs to the driver, Rosemary sitting across from them. Zach shifted uncomfortably beside her. Maureen has nothing to do with this. Honest, he said. This is just a friendly chat, Rosemary assured. I'm sure she won't be missed. Her eyes flicked to Maureen's pocket. Maureen gave a short nod. Yes, her comm was still on. At least she knew Rosemary didn't want any extra heat either. They drove in silence, Rosemary's eyes on the passing landscape, the city turning into back roads, while Maureen tried to think of what possible reason Elijah had to be buying information from Hale, and how the hell no one had realized it before. So, Rosemary said, breaking the silence, tell me about your connection to Hale. The deja vu of the questioning turned Maureen's stomach, and she glared at Rosemary, catching amusement in the lift of her lips. Ex-connection. Ex-boyfriend. I find that hard to believe. Maureen couldn't blame her. That was the same answer she gave 5 years ago when Zach had just told her she was actively dating Mike only months before. What if Elijah found out that she could manipulate the sin? She buried the thought. It wasn't something that she could handle at the moment. I'm an open book, Rose, Maureen said in challenge. The guy has a great dick, but his personality can use some work. Right. Well, some things are overheard by the unseen. Maybe you can give some insight. Have you ever heard of the graveyard? Damn, she wasn't wasting any time. Maureen fought the buzzing that began in her head, clenching her jaw and popping her ears. This was getting dangerously close to home. Like, where they bury bodies? She asked and looked over to Zach with a look of disgust. What are you into? His mouth opened and closed a few times, finally looking over to Rosemary. She's not going to know anything. Just let her go. Rosemary ignored him, arching an eyebrow at her. You wouldn't happen to know who runs the graveyard, would you, Maureen? You know, with all that pillow talk. Ah, there it was. Elijah was looking for the contact to the graveyard. If Rosemary thought Zach knew, she was way off base. That was a Peter Hale secret, and he would take it to the grave. Oh, Maureen said, shaking her head. Yeah, that would be the groundskeeper. She looked over to Zach with a bright smile. Did I get that right? The animosity rolled across the space between her and Rosemary, and Maureen fought like hell to keep her eyes on Zach. He looked at Rosemary, and Maureen looked too, recognizing the look Elijah got when someone tested his patience. Rose, you promised me information, Zach. I have it, I swear. It's just... Oh, don't worry about Maureen. She doesn't seem bright enough to keep up. Maureen rolled her eyes, but sat back. Okay, Zach said, but you promised me protection. Where do you think we're going? He eyed Maureen. I'm so sorry, Maureen, and then looked at Rosemary. But she knows, and as long as she knows, there's a risk. Well, now that you said that, Rosemary said with exasperation. She reached behind her, pulling out her Glock. Maureen's gut dropped as it was pointed at her. Whoa, Maureen said, bringing her hands up. Put that down. Like you've never been shot before, Maureen said with disbelief. Stabbed? Yes. Nearly caught on fire? Yes. Tossed from a 2-story building? Yes. But shot? Not yet, Maureen said. Don't really want to experience that. A smile lit Rosemary's face. You're not really part of the team until you've been shot, Mo. Maureen only had a moment to brace before Rosemary pulled the trigger. The burn in her shoulder was instantaneous, the pain following as a scream ripped out of her throat. She pressed a hand to her bleeding shoulder, dropping her head back as tears streamed down her face. The SUV skidded to a halt, Zach bracing against the side of the car, doing little to stop him from slamming into her. Stars danced in her vision, and she shoved him off, throwing herself at Rosemary. She headbutted her as hard as possible. Rosemary grunted and grabbed Maureen's shoulder, thumb digging into the wound. Darkness threatened Maureen's vision, and she pulled away, finding the barrel of the gun pointing at her face. She looked past the gun, glaring at Rosemary, a black eye already swelling, giving Maureen some sense of satisfaction. Get out of the fucking car, Rosemary ground out, pushing the door open. Maureen took several breaths before exiting, the bright sun assaulting her eyes, and she spun, squinting at Rosemary as she shut the door behind her. You kill me and they'll know, Maureen said through clenched teeth, anger superseding the panic she should feel as she patted her pocket. Francis will have your fucking head, granddaughter or not. We all know you're his favorite, she said, shaking her head with a frown. You know, it really pisses my father off. Maybe if Elijah wasn't a shady. Rosemary pulled the trigger and the ground beside Maureen exploded. Maureen's heart slammed into her throat. Do not speak about my father that way. Rosemary looked around, Maureen daring to do the same. They were on the deserted road, a cliff on one side dropping into the ocean. Your comms won't work out here, she said, waving her gun in an indication. We're too close to my compound. I will throw us both over that ledge before I let you shoot me again. Maureen adjusted her stance, the bleeding shoulder dipping limp in front of her. You're so dramatic. I'm not going to kill you. But I do have a lot of questions. My father is going to have a lot of questions. Hale? Above your pay grade. And Francis is going to have questions of his own. What is Elijah thinking pulling an op like this? And with Hale? Maureen said, this is going to tear Legacy apart when I tell Francis. Rosemary shook her head. Then don't tell him. I'm not here on Legacy business. I'm here as a representative of Legacy Inc. Maureen furrowed her brow. Legacy Inc.? Rosemary sighed. Can we table this? I need to take him to the safe house. She gestured with her head to the car. Maureen stared at her. She was kidding, right? She just kidnapped and shot her. But Rosemary dropped her mask, sincerity and fear filtering into her eyes. Give me 24 hours. Please. Maureen looked at the SUV. Even if she took down Rosemary, she'd have to contend with Zach and the driver, while possibly weaponless. It was suicide. But honestly, she wanted to know what the hell Legacy Inc. was. How do I know you won't tell Elijah? Maureen asked. Elijah might be running an off-the-books ops, but so was Francis. All missions had to be approved by the board to ensure no senior was abusing their power. What Maureen had been doing for the last 7 years could be grounds for removal of his senior assassin position. If you think what he did to you to get information was bad, he didn't even know your sins to exploit them. She furrowed her brow and swallowed hard. I don't want to face my father's wrath, that you, of all people, somehow stumbled into the middle of this and fucked it up. I'm saving myself as much as you when I ask you to table this for 24 hours. No, that would mean Elijah put her through the newer version of sin, the longer, more painful version. Maureen's jaw dropped open. It was hard enough to watch the trials, the sin tearing apart the body and mind while they watched, but to do that to your own kid? Rosemary, 24 hours, she asked again. Rosemary had never been her favorite person, but she'd never actually done anything to harm her. Hell, she'd even called for Francis when Elijah had dosed her. But Rosemary always looked out for herself first. It was why her brother spearheaded her removal from the team. If Maureen's safety was tied to Rosemary's, then 24 hours it was. Okay, Maureen agreed, ignoring the warning sirens in the back of her mind. What's your plan? We're in the middle of nowhere. Kill you and throw you off the cliff. You'll pick up service closer to the beach. Andrew didn't leave last night, so who's with you? Maureen eyed the cliff. It was easily a 500-foot drop. Fuck. Seamus, Maureen said. Can you keep him quiet? Rosemary asked. I can figure it out, Maureen said, walking to the edge, her stomach dropping. The descent was nearly straight down. You want me to climb that with a busted shoulder? Or I can shoot you and make the fall faster, she said with a smirk. Tomorrow morning, same shop, Rosemary added, raising her gun. The bar next door. Noon, Maureen countered. I'm going to need a stiff drink after this. Fair enough. Let's give him a good show. Rosemary nodded toward the car and then fired. Maureen dropped, landing on her back. A groan escaped her with the impact, and she swallowed the bile, trying to escape. Dead bodies didn't puke. Rosemary walked over and put a foot on her hip. Maureen glared up. Thank you, Rosemary said. She gave a slight push, and Maureen let her body tumble over the edge. So that is the end of chapter 28. I really enjoy the Rosemary-Maureen dynamic that has popped up in this book. You kind of get a sense in Sin that Rosemary and Maureen have a bit more history than one can imagine. And then when we find out about Kat, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But really, Maureen had such a great soul at the beginning, and she was always trying to see the better of everybody. And she really did try to see the good in Rosemary for as long as possible. So I really liked playing with the idea that even though we can see where Rosemary's loyalties lie, Maureen was still willing to do whatever she could to help her, knowing that she was probably going to get fucked in the end. So, uh, all right, guys, thank you for listening, and I will see you for chapter 29.